Okay, so today we're going to talk about JWT and how it fits in with Tyke in a little bit more detail. The main concepts we're going to talk about is the sub and how it fits in with Tyke, and how Tyke is going to authorize based off of either a key ID or a policy. It's really important to note that it's one or the other. We can't use both a key and a policy when using Tyke. Okay? So the sub, traditionally used as an internal ID with JWT, when used with Tyke, Tyke is going to take the sub and use it to generate a hash to store that key locally in Redis. So it's very important to use a unique ID for sub to make sure that each key is treated differently. Okay? So let's go ahead and create an API. So I'm going to add a new API, call it JWT, and scroll down to authentication and select JWT. For signing method, we're going to say HMAC shared, and then leave everything empty. We don't need a public key yet. The identity source, we can just leave a sub. If we wanted to override it, so we didn't use sub, we use something else, like client ID, then we could go and in our claim, instead of sub, use client ID. Okay? And then save. So if we try to reverse proxy, and by the way, our upstream is httbin.org. Let's pull up a curl here and try to do that under get. You can see it says the authorization field is missing. So let's create a key. I'm going to go ahead and create a key and select that this is a JSON web token. The secret is Tyke123. And then finally, I'm going to select the access rights to give this key access to this service that we created and hit create. So now we have a key. We can take this key back to our JSON web token, and in order to inject a key, we have to put it into the header as KID and then put that value there. Then we want to make sure we use that same secret when signing off, and we're done. Now we can take this, go back to our curl command, and inject a header called authorization and paste that, and now we're in. So now what Tyke did is it took this key that we generated and used this key to set rate limiting and access rights and everything else. Okay? When it stored it in Redis, it used the client ID value to generate a hash in order to store it in Redis. So let's say we don't want to use a key ID. Let's say we want to do it as a policy. So we'll get rid of our KID, and then in the claims we'll create a field called pol, and here is our policy ID. Okay? Before we use this, let's go back to Tyke and go back to our API, and then at the bottom we're going to set a policy field name. As soon as we set this, Tyke is going to start ignoring the KID and start only looking at the value of the policy. And so if we set pol, now we can go back and, so that's updated. So now we can create a policy, add a policy, and call this JWT access, and give this access to JWT and create. So now JWT access, we take our policy ID and inject it here. And now we can take this and paste. And it says key not authorized, token invalid, and that's only because we didn't put the signature in the API. So let's go back to JWT and use that same tyke secret and update. Now we should be able to, because tyke can read it properly. And there we are. So this is really good because it lets us have access to both policies and keys depending on our use case.